Give us the secret sauce on beating James Ignatowich today because he started. I don't know if you saw him do this, but him and Ryan Fu have started doing this Beat the Pro series
Yeah.
where they've traveled to these local facilities and you sign up, you go to the clinic, and you get an opportunity to also beat the pros. And I think you get something back for actually beating them. What is the secret sauce to beating this guy?
It's all mental. It's all mental, man. I've been living in that kid's head since he was probably 12 years old. So we used to play 10, like, he came to the academy, we were training, but sometimes I would just, not getting paid, we would just play on the weekend a match because he just like wanted to beat me. And I will say he beat me once and then I beat him the other 5 times. So in his head, he's like, well, I beat you, but the other 5 times, and I would bring, I would mess with him. I would bring like props to just get in his head. But, you know, it was good and bad because, he mentally, like, I would go to a tournament and he would kick me out. And I'm supposed to go and watch him play, and he would be like, "Dude, you got to leave, man. I can't play if you're here." So that probably wasn't the best, but we were in Japan, and it was an exhibition, but a serious match, and it was just like he'd been talking trash for months ahead of time, and I just kept my mouth shut. And then when it gets down to the moment of, I mean, he's nervous, and we just stepped up. I mean, he got up 7-1, and we were going to 15, and he was laughing at us. But then we just kept chipping, and he gets tight. I know he's going to get tight. If it was match point for him, I know I'm going to have an opportunity. I'm not going to give up because I know that he can get tight. And we ended up winning like 15-11 or something, and he was just devastated. But he's going to pretend it never happened, so that's fine.
Okay, Evan, I got a little quote for you here to start with.
Oh, okay.
All right. Not out of you, but out of Diadem Sports. Tennis and pickleball aren't just games. They're platforms for human connection. They're opportunities to step away from screens, engage with others, and remember the simple joy of play. Why is that such a pillar that has led to the mantra of what Diadem Sports is, which is live to play?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and you're hitting me off with one of our quotes. I love that.
Yeah.
The end of the day, sports are meant to be fun. Sports are meant to bring people together. Sports are meant to be an avenue to find passion and love and succeeding and things like that. So we obviously take Diadem and sports and our journey here very seriously, but it's also about having fun along the way. And so for us, like, the live to play is just about enabling and empowering people to find that passion, whatever that is. And we hope it's pickleball or tennis. But with, like, for example, our dynasty team, which is a junior program that's mostly been tennis, but now adding pickleball, young pickleball players too. We have a podcast built into that where, you know, what happens after your journey as a young player playing tennis or pickleball? Are you going pro? Probably not. Are you gonna find your way to become a coach? A lot of people do because they have a passion for it. But then are you going into business? And what did you learn from your time as this competitive player, and whether you're doing it as a junior or later in life, what have you learned and how does that impact the other parts of your life? And we deal with people all over the world that love tennis or love pickleball and then started a business related to that or started a business, adjacent to that. And so, long answer to a short question, but we want to empower people to find their passion, and especially within the sports that we work with.
How did you end up summarizing that to 3 simple words, which is live to play?
That took a long time. That took a
Yeah.
long, but we were thinking about how we wanted our customer, our partners, and our fans to relate to Diadem for a long time. And I don't know if it's something that's going to be forever or it's where we are right now, but I think that really embodies who we are and who we want our customers and partners to think of who we are.
So, and really in lieu to this mantra, you guys have developed this event called Diacon,
Yeah.
which is absolutely more than just a reveal of what you guys have next on the docket.
Yeah.
It is also this massive element of human connection.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about what made you and the team decide this is what we're going to do in order to promote or even, educate the audience on what we have next on the agenda? Because it's a pretty cool event.
Yeah. I'll tell you how it started, and then I'll tell you, where we feel it is now and going into the future. So it really started with the Vice. If you remember, if you, have used the Vice, for us, it was a revolutionary moment in our product development and where we thought the market was going to turn to, and in a way it did. And then we kind of go, okay, let's pull it back, because the power out there is absolutely crazy. But the Vice is probably the most powerful paddle. So till that point, every brand had only done a online, hey, here's our new paddle, or here's a new video of a new paddle, and here's some people that tested it, and here's their feedback. We wanted to unveil it in a way that was like an Apple launch event or something like that. And so we actually kind of poked a little fun at Apple with that. But it was a way for us to not only have this launch event, but also bring our partners in, really from around the world. And this past year, it was a lot of international people that came. And so as it kind of progressed from year 2 to now year 3, and what we're working on for year 4, it's really just a celebration of them. It's a celebration of, people that are selling our product, people that are using our product, people that are talking about our product. And we wanted to have a fun event with food and drink and games and activations. You're learning about Diadem. You're learning about your basically compatriots, people that are selling the product. You're in Indiana and they're in Texas. You're not competitors. You guys are probably sharing ideas. And so at the same time, here's what we did last year. Here's what we're going to launch this year. And here's a lot of information that you can take back to your area and be able to share it with the people in that area that are, obsessed with pickleball and tennis like we are.
I didn't know we were going to get into the weeds on this, but I'm curious, and I'm sure our audience is too, why you were saying that. Because an event like this is definitely more capital intensive than
Yeah.
running a simple ad online, right? With you being a co-founder and the director of operations and the other individuals that are at play, what made you guys make the decision that to say the capital towards this event is actually well worth it beyond just running simple paid ads online?
Yeah, so the first one we didn't know, we just guess, we just took a chance, and we do that a lot. I have no problem, investing in something that we think will work, and if it doesn't work, then you just don't do it again. And especially if there's still a lot of collateral that we gain from it, whether it was content or meeting people for the first time or whatever. I mean, every year, not only do we make those connections, do we get the information out to the people that need to hear it. But of course, we get purchase orders. We have international distributors that are doing significant volume that it changes maybe their outlook or what they were going to focus on. We have our facilities, so we have licensees that are there, and when you see that event, you realize that Diadem is going to back them. Diadem is going to put our money where it needs to go. Diadem is going to create the product. They're going to be available, and so it gives people that comfort and trust. And then we meet people. So like one great example was at Diacon 1. He was selling our product, Gene DeVito, in Texas. He was running a facility, and we met him there. And we obviously, our Texas sales rep knew him. He was working with him, visited him a lot, and introduced us. He was a great guy, and we're like, wow. And we were about to start breaking ground on our own facility, and one of our thoughts at the time was like, well, that guy's awesome. He's great. We love his personality. He loves Diadem. Maybe he wants to switch it up. And we got that conversation started, and now he's our national director of programming, and he runs 2 facilities basically already of ours. And he's unbelievable, and we never would have happened if he wouldn't have come and seen Diacon, met us, started that relationship. And that's happened with a few other situations as well.
The reason that I wanted to emphasize that is because you kind of see the narrative pretty repetitively that so many great opportunities come from just networking and human connection, as you just talked about. And that element is missed with a simple paid ad
Yeah.
or a simple marketing scheme that you run online. Yeah, you may convert into sales, but beyond sales, the leverageability, like you just said, of those connections that you actually have at Diacon are things that you don't even know until you actually have those conversations. So I thought that for our audience, that is very important of
Yeah.
what you guys have done to really grow the brand. Um, a piece of this, we'll get into the new tech in BluCore, which I'm interested in getting into, but I wanted to start with your guys' decision to one, move from tennis and invest in pickleball, why you actually made that decision, because you guys have also made the decision to expand beyond just the pickleball complex in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
So you've now decided that you're going to open up facilities across the nation realistically. So what really made you guys make the decision to one, invest in pickleball? Like what were you guys seeing in the sport that intrigued you? And then two, why pickleball complexes? Why move into the facility space with it being a little bit polluted at this point, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. And everything takes time. So like our idea for pickleball facilities was, a while ago, but it's a slow process with something like that. But in general, pickleball was something that we had in a deck years and years and years ago before we were really doing anything even in tennis. And some people told us stick to what don't go out of your lane. And some people told us you absolutely should. It's within your wheelhouse because you have the vendors, you have the know-how, it's a racket sport, etc. For me, I was a little bit hesitant. I tell people this a lot. I was hesitant in the beginning, whereas some of the other partners were, like, let's do it, right? Because it's a new basically vertical, right? And so the first thing we did, and I felt we had to do, we put in a pickleball court. We started playing. I started playing tournaments because it was actually awesome for me to compete again because of my shoulder in tennis. I can't really go out and compete. I can play for fun, but I can't like play tournaments. I would like my arm would fall off. So to play pickleball was awesome for me. I went out there. Not only was it fun for me and fun for the people I was playing against, but I also saw the scale of the tournaments that we played. Like, oh my God, there's thousands of people here. The booths that people have asked us to set up at a tennis tournament were packed, whereas a tennis tournament they're empty, right? But people are like talking to every booth vendor. They're normal people, they're hardworking people. It was great. So we said there's something there. We obviously started developing, but prior to that, even we were developing the paddles, which was easy enough for us because what separates us really both in tennis in the challenger brands, but also definitely in pickleball is, we have a team in Asia. We have a team that's going into the vendors, quality control testing. We don't just send over 1,000 paddles. We check those paddles before they come. We're in all of the major factories that produce the stuff that we're producing, whether it's grips in Japan, tennis balls in Thailand. These are all of the top factories, and that's in part and majorly because of our sourcing team, which has a long history in racket sports. So that was our secret sauce to be able to start right away with a great product, and that was the Icon. And it was a product that was kind of a little bit of a tennis twist to it with, edge guards that can be replaced. Like in tennis, you have grommets that are replaced. Having it hot press molded, which was the term we used, which then someone brilliantly really in the pickleball space came up with thermoformed. This word that has no actual meaning, but now everybody knows means okay, it's hot press molded and it's better. And so the Icon was really, really great for us. And we went with the Warrior after that, and we hit with a lot of great paddles back when the market really needed that. And for us, it was really just the ability to open new doors, open and expand the current doors that we were already in as they were looking to get into pickleball, so we can increase the value of a current customer that was like a country club that added 4 pickleball courts. And then it was an opportunity for us to kind of win or be a leader in the sport. Whereas in tennis, we're probably 30 years realistically from saying we are a top brand in tennis. Like they have so much history, they have so much goodwill with people that have been using their brand for decades for us to come in and say, no, switch to our brand. Whereas in pickleball, most people that were our customers early on, they started playing, after we created a brand, right? Whereas in tennis, we created the brand after they started playing, right? So it's a little bit different. And then going into the facilities, again, it was just an opportunity that we saw. The first one was in our backyard. We had a connection and just a crazy opportunity for an amazing facility with the ceiling heights and the way that we could create a community because we're here and because there was a need for it in this area, and it was difficult to find a facility that had rent and pricing that would make sense. We also then realize creating customers is really valuable for us. Instead of just trying to convert customers, taking them from a competitor or like basically convincing them to try our brand, we're creating them. We're getting people into our intro classes. They're playing pickleball for the first time. They're doing it with Diadem. They trust Diadem. They believe in Diadem, and they see every ounce of happiness coming out of that place, and they realize this is something that I can stand behind. And so for us to go around the world, because we have facilities that are in construction or sponsored by us in places around the world, like we want to create those customers. We want to grow the brand. The more people playing pickleball, the better it is for us long term. So that's just been kind of our mission. How can we grow pickleball? And part of that is facilities.
Is that a reason why you guys have really more invested in I'll call it the average Joe for lack of a better term,
Sure.
but the everyday player playing rather than really into the pro game? Because it seems like you guys have taken almost a step back from the pro game a little bit, or at least being involved from a marketing and advertising lens.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, we support, again, it's the live to play model too. We support the people that are out there looking to get better, looking to have fun, but aren't looking to necessarily make money on the sport. I mean, that maybe is the easiest way to say it. If you're looking to make money, now, I mean, we do love coaches and they're making money on the sport, but we love those people that are teaching people how to play pickleball. But as far as the pro scene, not only is it new and maybe already overpriced, but it's just chaos. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, it's chaos. And I mean, a lot of the players that are up there, and I'll call them out, and maybe you'll clip it, James Ignatowich. I beat James Ignatowich. I beat James Ignatowich in Japan and clip it and send it to him, and he's gonna clap back. But if I can beat you in a real match, and don't let him try to tell you otherwise, it was a real match with his pro partner, then really, it's not like what we're interested in. We're interested in people having fun. We're interested in people getting better. And so we make paddles for the whole range, right? Whether you're a beginner or you're a pro, it doesn't matter. But that's just not our focus. We find ways to reach the customers, I think, in a lot more like authentic way than putting a banner up at a pro tournament.
So I want to touch on this a little bit because I've gotten some information about your history with James and a couple of the other pros out there.
Sure.
So a little bit more about your background. You were a tennis pro for a good bit, right? At an academy down in
I would
Florida.
say so I was a coach, a teaching pro for junior, basically really super competitive junior players for about 10 years here in South Florida. Yeah.
And the information that I got is you had Christian Alshon, you had James Ignatowich, and both Yates and Hunter Johnson run through
Yates
you
and
at that
Hunter
academy.
Johnson's, I don't know if they may have stopped by before, but they were a little bit older, so they were actually already playing pros. Our connection to Yates and Hunter was, we were always working with them in one way or another on the tennis side as just like a sponsor. So giving them product, testing product. There was times that they were sponsored by us, times that they weren't. But I remember sitting down with them with one of the other founders, AJ, who had a much stronger connection with them when they were playing, and said, man, you guys are like 200 in the world in doubles. You could definitely keep going and maybe get top 100, play all the slams and have a pretty fun life, but you guys could be one of the best pickleball players. If you guys made the commitment, you got the twin thing going on. Doubles is where it's all about. You guys are doublers, and kind of, of course it was their decision, but I feel like we helped convince them to come over to pickleball, and we sponsored them for that year. I felt very similar about Christian, 100% his decision, but I said in his ear, and so did other people, like, man, you should play pickleball. And then James Ignatowich, I mean, for he probably started playing in like a February. I don't know what year he started playing pro, but from September to December, I was almost every day at the park playing with him. We were just like beating up on people. And it was more of like a joke, and then he started to think, wow, I could actually, do this. And I mean, guys, both Christian and him are incredibly athletic. So just another level compared to especially what was on tour at that time. And so they made the commitment, and probably made a lot of money doing it.
Where were, to give reference on like their talent from the tennis side, where did they fall, both like Christian, because you talked a little bit about the Johnsons already, but where did Christian and James really fall in reference to their, I'll say, tennis ability, to know
Yeah.
how it translates on over to pickleball?
Yeah, I would say, it was sad in my mind, if to make it like extreme, sad that they didn't go pro in tennis, because they were both top 10. Christian was number 1 in the country from like 12 to 16 years old. Like
Wow.
nobody could touch him. Nobody. And he had deficiencies. His forehand was insane. His backhand, he barely hit because he could run around and hit a forehand. But I mean, it was a world-class forehand. Like if he continued, he would have one of the best forehands in the game, probably. And his backhand was like worse than mine, and my backhand sucked. So, he didn't have a passion for getting better. He had a passion for competing. And I think James also, they were a little bit different, of course, but they love to like compete. They love to play, but they're not like, a guy that's in the lab every day against the wall. And now they are, right? Once they matured and now they're after college, they're smart kids. They see the opportunity with money very directly. Whereas tennis, you can do that, train for 10, 15 years and fail and have no chance of success just because of luck or because of timing or because of your athletic ability or whatever it is. In pickleball, it was a little more directly related. If I try and work really hard, I'm going to have success, and they did early on, and so it was kind of easy to continue.
I didn't know we were going to touch here, but I'm going to ask you the
Yeah.
question anyways. Do you feel like the exhibition style that has been started on the PPA tour side is hurting the sport in any way? Because tennis is the, eat what you kill mentality, right? That high level competition. Do you feel like it's taking away from what pickleball can be?
I honestly, I haven't thought too much about it. I could give you like my quick reaction, but I don't even want to get into the weeds. I mean, I could say there's a better way to do it, but I don't have a solution. So unless I have the solution, I really don't like saying there's something wrong with it. Um, I'm sure it could be better. I'm sure it could be worse. I think in general, while we don't really like support and promote the pro side, it's definitely helped the overall sport. So we're glad for it. Like I want people having an opportunity to make money. I want, I want the sport to pump money into that. I want money coming in from outside the sport. But in terms of like the right way to do it, I don't know, because people also hate the way tennis is. In terms of like, there's only a top 50 people are making money and making wealth. Somebody that's ranked 150 is scraping to get by, and somebody that's 250 in the world is borrowing money to do that. So it's not a great solution. Golf obviously is very similar to tennis, but there is more money for players all the way down. So it's I don't even know. I don't know the right way.
I guess the way that I should have phrased it was more from the what it does for the player lens than actual, I should say, sport as a whole.
Yeah.
Meaning there's something about the, eat what you kill mentality that really drives you, that really kicks that competitive edge up a notch is probably how I should have phrased it for you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that they had to do it to just make sure that they had a good enough size of players to draw from, that they're supporting some, maybe some that
Mm,
aren't winning every week. Tennis, I mean, when I was playing low level futures, if you were ranked 1700, you had a point, or maybe even 1500 in the world, you had 1 point. Now, I mean, it's thousands, and then beyond those guys, there's thousands more. I mean, there's literally tens of thousands of pros just trying to make it, not to add, the junior players that are on their way, or the college players that are on their way. So I just don't think there was a big enough pool to draw from. I think that probably, though, they've built it in a way that, the more obviously success you have, the more money you'll make. And I think long term, if it continues, it'll probably go more towards the tennis route, where there is no kind of guaranteed money.
mm.
Although at the high levels of tennis, there is guaranteed money. You'll if you're 10 in the world, a smaller 250 tournament will pay you maybe 150,000 just to show up, even if you lose first place.
Appearance
So
fee.
yeah, appearance fee. So they do have it to an extent. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a million ways to do it, and I have no idea which way's right.
How did you end up stumbling into pickleball with James and Christian? Like, you guys are all playing tennis and you're just like, "Ah, let's go beat up on some, 70-year-olds at the park to have a little fun."
I mean, for James and I, that was 100% it, and he was literally looking for people. And usually, what happens when you go to like it's the Delray pickleball Delray Beach Tennis Center with their pickleball courts is where we win a lot. And usually you're supposed to, you put your paddle on the rack and then you switch up partners. Everyone's just like looking at me. People are like, no, we're going to stick together. And they're like, come on, man, you guys need to break up. And we're like, no, we would just peg people. And it was a lot of fun. We stumbled on it because I was getting the brand into pickleball. And so, they were both still in college. I mean, they both did not finish college. They both made that leap before they finished college. And so, it was a much more difficult decision for Christian because he only had 1 year. He was at a great school. I mean, James was too. Christian was at University of Chicago. James was at Vanderbilt. So I mean, if you get your degree from those schools, that's awesome. And so it was a pretty big decision to say, I'm not gonna finish school right now. I'm gonna go pro in pickleball. But yeah, I think we just stumbled on it because had paddles, and we were like, they would come and help test sometimes even, and we would go play, and it just became serious for them because they saw the money opportunity.
What's the story about just calling James and asking him to come shoot a promo for you in pickleball and him picking up the paddle being like, "What is this?"
Yeah, I don't even remember how it happened, but I know that early on, all of our content, all of the content you see, whether it's in our old catalogs or videos, was all just like players that I worked with, right? Like I had like 25 kids that were maybe in college or end of their career in juniors. And so it'd be like, hey man, can you come, can you come do this? And so, yeah, James, for our Warrior launch, um, he came and did it, and we didn't use his face. We never planned to use his face anyways. So if you watch that video, it's actually a switch between me and him, because I have to be honest, James, you did a really poor job for a lot of it. And so like he just couldn't get some of like how we wanted to spin. So like I had to step in, or maybe even Mike, one of the other co-founders, we like stepped in to do it also. But some of the legs were him and some of them weren't. So it's pretty funny.
Give us the secret sauce on beating James Ignatowich today, because he started. I don't know if you saw him do this, but him and Ryan Fu have started doing this Beat the Pros series
Yeah.
where they've traveled to these local facilities and you sign up, you go to the clinic, and you get an opportunity to also beat the pros. And I think you get something back for actually beating them. What is the secret sauce to beating this guy?
It's all mental. It's all mental, man. I've been living in that kid's head since he was probably 12 years old. So we used to play 10, like, he came to the academy, we were training, but sometimes I would just, not getting paid, we would just play on the weekend a match because he just like wanted to beat me. And I will say he beat me once, and then I beat him the other 5 times. So in his head, he's like, well, I beat you, but the other 5 times, and I would bring, I would mess with him. I would bring like props to just get in his head. But, you know, it was good and bad because, he mentally, like, I would go to a tournament and he would kick me out. And I'm supposed to go and watch him play, and he would be like, "Dude, you got to leave, man. I can't play if you're here." So that probably wasn't the best, but we were in Japan, and it was an exhibition, but a serious match, and it was just like he'd been talking trash for months ahead of time, and I just kept my mouth shut. And then when it gets down to the moment of, I mean, he's nervous, and we just stepped up. I mean, he got up 7-1, and we were going to 15, and he was laughing at us. But then we just kept chipping, and he gets tight. I know he's going to get tight. If it was match point for him, I know I'm going to have an opportunity. I'm not going to give up because I know that he can get tight. And we ended up winning like 15-11 or something, and he was just devastated. But he's going to pretend it never happened, so that's fine.
Oh my God. So what for you, have you played some pro tournaments in
In
pickleball?
pickleball, no, I did some like 5-0 tournaments early on. I never did like a pro tournament.
What's holding you back?
Probably my family. I was actually thinking about it last night.
Mm.
I was gonna joke with my wife and say, "Hey, I think I'm gonna go pro, and we're gonna like film content or something." But like, I just, I have a 2-year-old and I have a 1-year-old, and I love them to death. And the moment I'm not here, I'm with them, and I just don't have time between Diadem and my family, which I spend every second with, and I want to go and like play tournaments. Now, my wife loves watching me play. Like when I've played tennis tournaments or exhibitions or the pickleball, I mean, her whole family comes, and it's awesome. But like traveling and doing stuff like that, and obviously the kids are young now and fast out there, and I'm older and slower, so I probably wouldn't do well. But I would like to try at some point.
Are the kids going to be playing pickleball or tennis? Or are you going to put a racket of both and see which
Yeah,
direction they go?
yeah, my daughter, she's 2.5. She's held both rackets and paddles. We brought her to the facility, and she's dinked around a little as she can. But every weekend, her and her friends, I do get out for about it's supposed to be 30 minutes. Maybe I can get 15 where I can keep them entertained. We're just like throwing the ball, catching the ball, her and her like 3 or 4 friends. So it's tennis right now. But maybe a little bit of both.
Let's get into the new tech that you guys are developing.
Absolutely.
So you've launched this technology called BluCore,
Yeah.
which is really going to be the core of your brand new paddle line. Do you want to dive into a little bit what BluCore actually is?
Yeah. This is BluCore. It is a solid closed cell EPP, or an expanded polypropylene core that is, basically the same material as a PP honeycomb core, but in a different form. So instead of, being extruded into a like hollow honeycomb, it's pellets. And I mean, you probably can't see, but there's like little dots. These are like the pellets that are mixed with resin, put into a mold, heated, pressurized, so they expand out against each other and create this solid, very, very lightweight and incredibly durable core. And it has a lot of great properties that are great for pickleball. And probably the number one thing is going to be the durability. But it also has better dwell time, and there's a lot of foam cores starting now, like people, and that's kind of what they're looking for. Can we get a better dwell time with this? Absolutely. The
And this is
surface,
not foam, to clarify.
this
Right?
is technically not a foam, but
Yep.
this is what people are going to consider foam.
Acts similar.
Yes. Um, so it has a different surface stiffness than the core, like the inner core. So as the ball hits, you will have some deflection and then snap back. So the dwell time is better. It's at least 10 times more durable with our lab testing, and it's even hard to say that it could be much more than that, because the honeycomb core was starting to break down, and it had about a 10 times more crushing going on, but really there was almost no change to the BluCore, so it could last longer. Of course, we feel the sweet spot's a little bit bigger because you have that consistency from center to edge. And then with the durability, you're not going to get a core crush. You're not going to get delamination. The application of either, fiberglass or carbon fiber or whatever we use to the surface is much better than the hollow honeycomb with a non-woven attached to it. And so with all that, we're able to offer a lifetime warranty on the core. And that's really what we wanted to do with our innovation. How can we give people more trust and more consistency with a paddle?
Yeah, when I saw that you guys were advertising a lifetime warranty, like that's kind of crazy in today's pickleball market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I mean, I think it is, but it shouldn't be,
exactly. It definitely should to me, especially when I mean the price creep has gotten to
Yeah.
some are 300 over $300 a paddle,
Yeah.
$350 a paddle. Like that's crazy. You should be at least having a paddle for 5, 6 years at that price point, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the whole, pitch that we say, and I'll continue to say, is I want players to be able to decide when they want to upgrade their paddle. So not be forced to because their paddle fall apart. Now I think that there's still so much innovation in the sport that in could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, but at some point you'll probably want to upgrade it, and hopefully it's one of our paddles, and maybe it's just a new color, maybe it's just a new shape. But it shouldn't be okay. I need a new paddle because although this one was pretty good, it now is completely different than what it was, and that's part of the warranty. The idea is that it's not going to change throughout the life of the paddle. It's not this stiff paddle that all of a sudden becomes a springboard where then all of a sudden becomes dead. And I think that we've all seen that with paddles, and there's a lot of great marketing people that are in pickleball for sure. And so they can spin a story however you want, but at the end, you have to look at like the whole totality of a paddle. Like, what's their story? How does it play today, and how does it play in 6 months? And if all of those are in line, then you're good. If it's not, then I would say that you maybe should look elsewhere.
Is it one shape?
No. So the one thing that I will say, and I've been saying, and it's a little confusing, I'm sure, but this is a technology. This is our core. This is what's going to go in paddles. This is not a paddle. Our paddle will be unveiled and launched, our first line of paddles soonish. I mean, in the spring. And we will have not only that paddle in that line, but all of our high performance lines that we launched this year will all have BluCore. So our first launch, without getting into it too much, we will have 9 variations. We will have 3 shapes and 3 thicknesses.
Okay.
So
So
it will be robust in terms of giving people an opportunity to use BluCore, and not be relying on, do you like this specific paddle, this shape, this thickness, this characteristic? We'll have power paddles. We'll have control paddles. I mean, we can do a lot with the BluCore. We can change the densities. We can make it more powerful. We can make it more control. We can make it, we can even make the sweet spot different, obviously, by changing the shapes and the thicknesses and all that stuff.
So you are personally involved in this developmental process, right?
Yeah.
So the reason that I'm asking that is because you've come from a heavy tennis background and now developing pickleball paddles. And really what I wanted to find for a little bit for some of our audience, because not everybody in our audience is a pro, is how certain attributes actually like change the way that you play, or what certain attributes align with you as a player, right?
Yeah.
So majority will go back to the average Joe or the day-to-day player. Like, do they actually need the most powerful paddle? Like, does that actually benefit them to just have a springboard of a paddle to go out there and blast everybody with?
No, I would say probably 95% of the people no.
Yeah.
Again, I think it goes to like great marketing stories, and you see what pros are using. But it's interesting because in tennis, what the pros are using is a painted racket that looks like the one you're buying, and it's not anything like the one you're buying, and it never should be, because the pros are completely different animals than, again, 99% of the people that are playing the sport, including junior and college players. Those are usually using the stock rackets, whereas a pro just a couple years later is using a completely different frame. So I would say there's a lot of misconception, and I would love to have people, not me probably, because I'm also selling paddles, to really dive in and explain what is needed. And like a good coach could maybe explain that. And in tennis, a good coach is who you learn from, and they're telling you that knowledge. Whereas in pickleball, you're usually learning from a YouTube video or the dude at the park that you started playing with yesterday, so it's a little bit different in how we learn what's good for us. But in general, that power, that moment of where you need a ton of power is in like a couple shots, and the rest of the point, you probably should be focusing on how can I hit the ball exactly where I want. And a part of what BluCore and a lot of the paddles we're going to be launching with it is what I've felt during the development is I can place that ball where I want it. And I can still get power when I need it on again certain paddles, and certain paddles not as much focused on power, but um, because you have more dwell time and a bigger sweet spot in that solid, like no matter where you're hitting, you just feel more connected to the ball. That drop that's in that corner or in the middle, and that's I think what most players should be working towards, not blasting people off the court. And I think there'll be ebbs and flows of what the sport goes towards. There was a time when tennis was all about a a serve and a volley, and then it became a forehand, set up the point with a forehand, and then it became you need to be able to hit every shot anywhere in the court at any time and just be consistent. And then the power started to raise, and it ebbs and flows, So um where a 3-5 player is focusing on today may be different in a couple years, but definitely power is almost too much for a lot of people, and you're hitting it in the fence. And it's like if you can just get out of the way, you win the point.
What's the the addition to this is I think a lot of people now reference some paddles from like a lot of the other YouTube creators like Pickleball Studio or Pickleball Effect of like you have your wide bodies, which is a little bit wider of a paddle, not as long in length. You have your elongated and you have your hybrid shapes. For someone that has all these options in front of them in our audience, what is the benefit to either of those styles, and why should they choose one over the other?
I think there's definitely several benefits and several, things you're giving up with each one. I think the, wide body, which we call the max, has really kind of grown in popularity recently. I think some pros are using it. That helps. But then just like the actual functionality of it, you get more spin because you have more surface area to kind of, grab the ball. It's a little bit easier to flick because it's shorter, so your swing weight isn't as high. Of course, you're giving up power, you're giving up reach and things like that. But maybe for the average player, that might be a great shape for them. Personally, I think it looks a little dorky. I think I love the look of our pro shape, which is a little bit elongated handle, a shorter face, but still like a longer, skinnier shape. And I feel like I can drive well with that. I'm probably giving up the opportunity for some spin by not having more surface area and a bigger sweet spot. But that's comfortable for me. I think in the end, the consumer needs to figure out what characteristics they're looking for and need to decide, do they want to enhance their strengths? So say they are a big hitter. One thought you could say is go to a paddle that's going to give you more power, because that's your strength. And if you can hit it harder than anyone else, maybe that's a benefit. Or maybe you say, I'm already a big hitter, I don't need power. And that's like such a personal choice. Like, do you want to have more control, but you are a power hitter? And then it's, other than that, it's like, yeah, either protect your strengths or build up your weaknesses. And that's just, all this stuff to me is personal choice. There's definitely no right or wrong answer.
The other thing that I wanted to kind of highlight a little bit here is you specifically mentioned dwell time when it comes to the new BluCore tech. Why is that such like a key factor moving forward for anyone playing to really have a paddle with high quality amount of dwell time? And really, what is dwell time?
Well, yeah, dwell time is how long that ball stays on the paddle. And obviously there's compression going on. The ball is being squished and kind of going flat on one side. The paddle is pushing in. The more friction there is, so if you have more of a rough surface, you'll probably have a little more dwell time technically as well. But really, like the way that the core is. And so you could have our Vice EVA core that really holds the ball because it's deflecting so much, it's almost creating a pocket. creating illegal opportunities, right? But with BluCore, it's not illegal, but it just holds a little bit longer where you feel you can place the ball a little bit better. And the way that I always describe it, coming from tennis background too, is it's really like how close can we get a paddle to become what we would consider an extension of your hand. Like you want it to feel like it's a part of your body. And in tennis, especially in the modern game with strings the way they are, you certainly do. When you become an expert in tennis, you can do anything you want with that ball. I can put it anywhere. I can catch them. People can hit a ball at me and I can just like catch it with my racket. I mean, I feel like I am one with my racket. And in pickleball, I think it's getting closer to that, but especially if you pick up a Gen 1 paddle, I mean, it's a thud. It's completely separate. It's like hitting against a wall. It's not a part of your hand. And so I think there's very little you can do with control and kind of being able to speed up and slow down. It's very difficult. And I know that was kind of a part of the fun of the game, that there was no almost benefit to being an expert. Like there was no benefit of playing 10 years compared to someone playing 1 year, because the equipment and the way that the sport is and the court size and stuff, it's just very neutralizing. And I do love that about the sport, and I think that'll always be part of it. But I do think as the sport goes on, the gap between the best player in the world and the person picking up a paddle today will become so great that will look at those players with awe and just want to be like them someday, right? Whereas right now, I look at James and say, I can beat you, man. I don't want to be like you. Yeah. So I think that the dwell time
Man.
is how close can we get to, um, yeah, being an extension of the hand. James is gonna kill me.
Oh my God. So
He's gonna come out with like a rebuttal probably to this and like talk
oh,
trash, but that's
I
fine.
can't wait to clip it up. You have no idea. You're giving me absolute gold right now. The other piece of the blue core is you guys talked heavily not only about the dwell time, but the fact that it's really minimizing the inconsistencies along the face. And
Right.
that's a huge thing for anybody playing pickleball, right? You get a ball on that edge and it's that thud, it's that dead, and it falls to the ground. And you're like, what the F? Like you didn't even have a chance to get the ball over because it just dies.
Yeah.
So those inconsistencies are huge. How does the blue core really help with those inconsistencies along the edge of the paddle?
Yeah, so it's not only the edge of the paddle, but with honeycomb and a lot of paddles out there, it's just even in the middle. I mean, and to be honest, we've had that with
That's
our
very true.
paddles. We've had warranty claims come in where people say I have a dead spot, and it's a manufacturing error. Let's replace it. But that stuff shouldn't happen, and it's a combination of, could be damage inside the honeycomb just when they were building it. It could be a delamination where it's separated because the glue wasn't properly applied. And so there's a million things. And then, of course, towards the edge, when you get out of the sweet spot, the consistencies become wild. And I think the blue core, because there's consistency in the densities and there's no holes, obviously. So it's the same all the way towards the edge. You'll be out of your center of gravity, so it's going to play different. You're not going to want to hit towards the edge, but I think you'll be able to get away with it sometimes. If it's coming at you fast and you're just, reacting, I think you'll be fine. For us, the whole point of the blue core and the reason I mean, we tested a lot of materials, obviously, and it started with the Vice and the EVA, which is too soft. This is incredibly hard, but we needed it to be solid. So because we needed the weight to be something we can control, right? If it was too dense or heavy and it was solid and it was outside of weight, we'd have to put holes in it. And putting holes in this material is not something you want to do, because you're losing the integrity of the material. And I think there's going to be some foams out there that they do put holes in, and I would say that that's probably going to lead to inconsistencies. That's going to lead to um, probably some manufacturing even defects, because you're messing with the actual material, and the glue is going to not be there, so there'll be an area where the glue can start to separate. You'll start to get that delamination, and so it was really important for us to have a solid piece of material, so that we could feel confident that the sweet spot can expand basically as far as we could possibly make it.
Is it going to be edgeless or no?
So some potentially will, in terms of,
Okay.
because it's going to be in a wide range of paddles. The
Yeah.
one we're launching first, it's actually another like kind of nugget is it's a completely new type of edge guard. It's not edgeless, but it's not an edge guard like we're used to. It's not glued on. It's molded in. It's part of the paddle, if that makes sense.
Mm,
But it's
yeah.
definitely not. It's a different material than carbon fiber, but or plastic. So I think that's going to actually be a big part of the line we're launching is not just, yeah, of course it has BluCore, but we're talking about BluCore now. We're getting BluCore out to everybody. People are going to get teasers and learn as much as they can about different foams and BluCore and things like that. But the actual paddle will have its own unique tech, and I think a lot of people are really going to like it.
So how about the surface too? Is this going to be a standard, raw carbon fiber surface or T700, or are you guys experimenting with something else?
It's going to be, for the first launch, it's going to be a Kevlar surface.
Okay. So a little bit stiffer. Is it
Yeah.
a combo of Kevlar and carbon fiber or raw Kevlar?
There's again variations within the line, so I don't want to say one way or the other. There'll be a few different variations. So it's
Okay.
depending on what we're looking for from that particular size and shape and thickness and all that.
Gotcha. All right. Is there the last piece that I was kind of wondering about, is it still that standard, we'll say thermoformed for a lack of a better term, right? Is that still that standard manufacturing thermoform process, or is there something else that you guys are adding in along the, I'll say, edges, like some of the Gen 3s, or are you guys even experimenting with something close to what would be a Gen 4?
Well, yeah, we consider this a Gen 4 with the foam and again, BluCore foam. I mean, I think those terms are going to be intertwined.
Yeah.
So we consider, and I think a lot of reviewers and stuff will also consider foam paddles, full foam paddles will be Gen 4. Um, I just don't want to get into too much detail because that's
Yeah.
part of the tech will be how we develop the edge guard and how that edge is. But for the most part, I think people will consider it thermoformed. It's like a typical thermoformed paddle.
Okay. I'm excited for it. I'll have to
Yeah.
see when I can get my hands on one of these bad
Yeah, I
boys.
think sooner rather than later. So
Yeah.
we'll get the people that can really share the story paddles early enough that you guys can get a feel for it and give your opinions for sure.
That's exciting. The other piece of this is that you guys decided to start a new line of shoes,
Yeah.
the Court Flow. Now, I personally think that the shoe category is something that is the details are overlooked, especially when you are I'll say even at the pro level. But for me, I am just a person who is very quick. I come from a high level hockey background.
Yeah.
So lateral explosive movements is something that just been training a lot of my life. But when it comes to shoes, there's a couple things. One, when you're planting hard, if you're sliding too much or inconsistently, it's very hard to stabilize your body.
Yeah.
The second piece is also the fact of if your foot is moving around in that shoe itself,
True.
it's that millisecond that changes you from actually reaching and getting to a ball to it being blown by you on a passing shot, right?
Yeah.
So what made you guys really develop a new line of shoes, and what was some of the tech that went into it?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, our shoe line and our shoe department is really headed up by our head shoe designer Mark, and he comes from a crazy background in the shoe industry, working with top pros in tennis and basketball. He designed Dwayne Wade's Converse back when he was with Converse. He designed Roddick's Reebok shoe and Venus Williams Reebok shoe and Coco Gauff's New Balance shoe. So we were able to kind of get him. He's still a young guy, but he's kind of in retirement. He's doing his own thing. He writes books. He's an amazing designer and artist, and he does books, and he's got a young family. And so it was kind of a passion project, because what happens is when you become a designer for New Balance, you're just changing the Gen 7 to the Gen 8, and you have to work within a very tight window of what that shoe is. For us, it was a blank canvas. So we had many meetings early on years ago about what we were trying to achieve from a shoe that didn't exist, completely starting from scratch. And thank God he was able to take a shoe from an idea and help bring it to production, because there's so many levels to a shoe that's very unlike a pickleball paddle, where it's much simpler. Like, you can make a pickleball paddle in your garage. And so, from the materials to the layups to the colors, even, or the design and the shape and the last of the foot and the outsole, it's super complicated. And we were in a great position where all we really needed to do was say what we wanted and give feedback on each iteration. And one of the big things we wanted was exactly what you just said, which is that support when you go sideways and you take, in pickleball and in high level tennis, kind of a big step to your left and want to push back to your right really quick. And there's a ton of great shoes out there, so it's not like we said, well, nobody's doing this or nobody's doing that. We just wanted to make sure that we put everything we could into our first shoe, the Court Burst, to where people had that lateral support. They, of course, had toe drag support, because in both tennis and pickleball, you're dragging your toe. And we wanted to do it in a way that it wasn't bulky and heavy. So just simple additions of like kind of putting like ribs instead of like a solid piece, because you're still going to just drag along whatever is sticking up the highest. So you didn't need to have material the whole way. To the mesh and having it very breathable, super important part of both the Court Burst and the Court Flow was the last. And the last is the piece of, it's basically your foot. It's what would be your foot that we build the shoe around. And so getting that shape, and that shape is, they chisel it off, and we have to decide what we want that shape. So when your foot goes in, and by the way, everybody's foot's different, so it's impossible to make a last that is comfortable for everybody, but making the material a little bit stretchy and making the last have a little more room in the toe box, those type of things, we felt we could make a shoe. And we felt we needed a shoe that when you first put your foot in, it feels great. Because if there's a 15-hour break in, then why would someone choose our shoe over a shoe that they're used to using, where they already know it fits and know that it's comfortable? So with the Court Burst and now with the Court Flow, you put that shoe on, and it's incredible how great it feels right away. And you feel like you have support, but it's not constricting. It's breathable. You got enough cushion underfoot. And the difference between the Court Flow and the Court Burst is the Court Flow has more cushion underfoot. It's more of a foamy shoe. You're sitting up a little higher. The material's breathable, but it's a little more lightweight. There's not a lot of extra features on it that are making it super durable for the people that are really working hard to scrape their shoe up. So it's more of an off-court, on-court shoe. You can wear it to the grocery store even and not look out of place. It looks almost like a cross trainer, but it has a lot of the features, from the air weave mesh to the foam, that are built for pickleball. And then the big key is that it's $115 retail compared to the Court Burst, which is $150. And that was a big comment that we heard, especially from our partners that are selling in a shop. A lot of their customers, they're not willing to spend $150 on a shoe. They want to spend 100 to 120. And so trying to, reduce the price, obviously reduce our margins a little bit, to give kind of a new market an opportunity to try our brand, because there is a lot of crossover from the outsole to the last and things like that, to where it's still a really, really good shoe.
You have no idea how many shoes. I actually have like a graveyard of shoes in my house here. It's just like hole after hole after
Yeah.
hole in that sliding spot, especially my right foot when I drag. It's actually insane.
Yeah. And,
Um,
that's how it goes. I mean, we could definitely make a shoe that would never put a hole in it, but it would be so heavy and stuff. So if you have a problem issue, it's probably going to could do with whatever shoe you're wearing. But with our shoe, you're going to feel probably a little more stable. Maybe you won't have to drag as much, because maybe it'll be easier to, pick the feet up, because you have that rebound effect from that lateral support. I mean, there could
mm,
be a lot of reasons why you're dragging it. Maybe it's not just because you drag. Maybe you need more support there.
absolutely. Absolutely. I've explored that, and the two pieces that I've explored is, one, the way the shoe actually fits for me, and what I'm getting into is, you talked about a big toe box. I've noticed that with a smaller toe box, my foot kind of rolls more because I just don't have that like sprawl stability in my
Yeah,
toes. Like, I don't have enough space for my toes to actually support the shoe.
right.
The other half that you talked about was a heavy shoe. So, not to call out any brands, but Nike does have a well-built shoe, but it's super heavy, which is, you probably know this. I think it's the Rafa,
Yeah,
and it has, like, over the entire top of it, this, like, layer to protect from, like, drags. However, the shoe just feels so clunky on your foot. I'm like, "No way Rafa actually wears this shoe." Like,
yeah,
it's just, there's just no way he wears it. But, however, you
probably
will
not.
not put a hole through the top of it.
Yeah, probably not also because he's wearing a new pair of shoe every match. So like why is he worrying about durability? But yeah, I
Exactly.
mean that's the trade-off. There's a trade-off between durability and weight. And then there's a trade-off between kind of speed and stability sometimes. And we feel we found a pretty good middle ground. But usually the higher the shoe is, higher your foot is off the ground. So more foam. You'll get more stability because you're kind of like, you know, sitting there. Whereas lower to the ground, you can like push off a little bit quicker. You're like tires are there and your tread's ready to go. So it's a balance. And at the end of the day, that Nike shoe, they had the counterpart to, the Federer back in the day. So back when those two were the ones, and they had, his was a lot more sleek and lightweight. It had like mesh that was like so thin and light, but still durable that like it felt like you were wearing a glove. And so, but then it was very tight, very narrow. So like there's such trade off between shoes that it's a really interesting category for us to you know produce for, market for, and sell because it's so specific to people. And whereas in pickleball, you may learn how to play pickleball today and buy a paddle tomorrow, and you're going to trust whatever the marketing story is, whatever the coach is telling you. But in shoes, even if you never played pickleball, you've worn shoes your whole life. So it's like, well, I'm this type of shoe. I like this. I don't want heavy because I get, calluses. And you already have this knowledge of shoes that it's hard to convince people sometimes try something new. We've had a lot of success with the shoes because it's a great shoe. I mean, it's the only way I can say it. It's really been more word of mouth than anything. Of course, we market it. And, we're on Amazon. We're with retailers, and people can see reviews. But it's word of mouth. I mean, we get customers that'll send us an email like, "Hey, I need to buy another pair of shoe. This is the seventh pair of shoe I've convinced somebody to buy. Can I get a deal?" type thing. Because people are, and I've looked, people are on our website full price buying 7, 8 pairs of shoes over a course of a year, not for themselves, but for their family, their friends. And so the word of
Oh, yeah.
mouth has been really strong because they've had a lot of great, interaction with the shoe. So we're really lucky for that.
So, to summarize this, if we were to have, like, an ideal, audience, or I'll say avatar, as we reference, for both the court flow and the court burst, to give them reference on, like, where they should lean towards, what would you give as, like, your ideal avatar for each shoe?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great question. And I've kind of thought about this before as we were developing it. The court burst is that hardcore player really that wants to get better, that's out there training. Now, you don't have to be great, but you're probably playing a lot. You're putting a lot of wear and tear on your shoe, on your feet. You want comfortable, reliable, and safe shoes. Whereas the court flow, oh, and by the way, you're willing to pay 150 because the reality is it's a $150 shoe, and that might be a price point that's high for people. It might
Mm,
not matter to people. The $115 price point in the court flow is going to go towards people that, you know, want a comfortable shoe, want to have a court specific shoe, but maybe aren't pushing the boundaries of how, fast they can run, how quick they're stopping and returning back to the original position. So maybe it's a beginner, maybe it's an older person, maybe it's a younger girl who's just getting into tennis, and they love the way it looks. They want to have comfort, and they want to have stability, but they're not pushing the boundaries of stability. If you know what I mean by that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Not the not blowing through sneakers once a month type ordeal.
Yeah. Not Zion Williamson blowing out the
Yeah,
side of a sneaker, making a quick pivot on the basketball court. Yeah, you're not pushing the
great
boundaries, but
reference.
you want a yeah, you want a shoe that you can trust, and that's what, the court flow and the court burst both are.
So moving into kind of staying on the tech here, but you guys do things a little bit unconventional. And you'll probably know what I'm getting at here. Is starting with the Vice paddle, you guys said, let's just release this paddle that hits hard, kind of like takes the game in a little bit direction. Isn't technically legal, but you could take out onto the court and everybody has a Vice paddle in their hands and you're just having a ball. You've also moved into the other half of this, which is the quiet space
Mhm.
with the hush paddle as well as the hush ball. So what really has became like a key feature of Diadem to go a little bit the unconventional route and touch these unconventional categories of tech?
Well, we wanted initially to just, push the sport, push innovation. We wanted to see what would happen. We wanted to see what people's reactions would be with the Vice. With the Hush, it was really solving another important need, both from the directive from the USAP, both from news articles we read where pickleball is not allowed in my neighborhood. Um, we wanted to solve that problem. The thing that I will say very candidly is I wish we could have made the Hush an approved paddle. I wish it could be as quiet as it is and approved. It can't. Yeah, I mean, we're still working on it. I'm still working on Hush 2.0. I want a paddle that's even quieter than the Hush and able to play in tournaments. But our thought process there was we had a strong desire and what we felt a need to introduce a quiet paddle. We have a lot of customers that asked for that paddle, right? That wanted a paddle that their country club that was thinking about putting pickleball in could use. And so it has been a very, very popular paddle for us among our wholesale accounts that are in neighborhoods, in country clubs that need it. And it is the quietest paddle that the USAP's ever tested. And we really felt, well, even though you can't use it in a tournament, the people that want quiet don't aren't really probably thinking I want to play a tournament too. It's like, and they could have a paddle for a tournament even if they wanted, but maybe they want to just go play in their neighborhood or in their backyard while their customers or sorry, their neighbors are calling the police on them because it's so annoying. So, I think both have a same and similar concept of they're not really within the rules of the USAP, but they're a little bit different because we really felt the Hush we were doing a service, like, and a need for the community. Whereas the Vice, we just wanted to like have some fun. We wanted to see what would happen if we went this route. And what we kind of felt actually over a few years is, hey, it's a fun paddle, but I don't think that's where the sport should be. I don't think it should be that fast. And we learned that both from a lot of our customers. We learned that from where the pro sport is going with power, power, power. And I just feel like I think the true nature of the sport is more of a skill based, hit it to your target, get into the right position, be ready, as opposed to just I can sit on the baseline and I can pass you from the baseline and that's that.
Yeah, because it kind of like especially watching singles now, like in
Yeah.
pickleball, singles has become a mirror image of tennis.
Yeah.
It's definitely moved away from what pickleball originally was, which was the other piece of like this cat and mouse game, right? But it seems like the sport also understands that on all the tours, and they're trying to diffuse that to some extent
Yeah.
with the new like PB core rules that I know that USA Pickleball is releasing. Did that you guys obviously knew about those qualifications, those requirements before you really started developing your paddle?
Yep.
Has that changed kind of any innovation processes moving forward on really what the elements that you're looking to, the characteristics that you're looking to improve innovation moving forward on? Because from here, it's kind of been like, okay, what's the next tech that we can release that's more power, right? How
Yeah.
can we stay within the limits, get more power? What are the characteristics leading kind of moving forward that you're now going to be looking at with these new requirements by USA Pickleball?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think just to highlight what you just said, how can we make a more powerful paddle that stays within the requirements? I think a lot of brands, and especially like small upstart brands that don't have really any risk, is how can we make a paddle that passes but actually isn't within those rules, you know? And so we can be the fastest paddle, and maybe we can shoot up in recognition for a month until those paddles get known to people as hot and then disappear, right? And so I think that's a tough game that we're playing. Is it, while I think the people and the governing bodies and the manufacturers would like to limit the power, I think there'll always be people that push those limits, and then there'll be people that want to buy those, and then it kind of just creates this like, are we catching up? Are we going to have something like them? We purposely changed our kind of manufacturing process, and we skipped Gen 3 super powerful, basically big deformation and maybe even degradation for benefit type paddles. We knew that limit in power was coming. I think a lot of people are crying like this was not enough information. Not We didn't know early enough. I mean, we knew a long time ago. Everybody knew in the manufacturing a long time ago, and some people pushed it and kept going. Whereas we kind of saw and agreed that's probably what should happen. And so we started working on BluCore. We started working on a paddle that where we feel power is limited. If power is truly limited and everybody has a top end paddle that has for power, this is as fast as you can make it, then there is no benefit for innovation to say, how can we make it even faster, or how can we make it even more poppy, because it's limited. So then it's, what is the characteristics that a consumer is going to want? If they can choose the same power level across 100 brands, why is one paddle better than the other? And we found, and we landed on, and we move forward with durability and consistency, right? So, and those, it's great, those go hand in hand with BluCore. You're durable, so it's not going to fall apart, but also consistency, and durable consistency, or consistent durability, where it doesn't change over the life of the paddle, and you can hit 5 shots in the same spot on your paddle, and the ball will go 5 places that are very, very close together. In tennis, we used to practice serving. The famous story of Pete Sampras could hit a dime, right? He would be, at some point he stopped putting cones, they put dimes on the court. In pickleball, I would say if you take one of the juiced paddles and said, can you hit a dime 5 times? You could probably put $1 million in a box next to it. And most people, even the pros, wouldn't be able to, because it's kind of like you're using that power to put away the shot. So you're hitting down, and you really can't miss because you have a big enough target when you're on the kitchen line to put it away. But in terms of, can you put them in the corner? Can you make the doubles team collide in the middle? I think that the consumer will start to understand, as power is limited, if that's truly what happens, that they want to have pinpoint accuracy, they want to have consistency, they want to have a great feel, they want their arm to not hurt, they want these type of characteristics that we can do with BluCore, and we can do with the innovation where we're not focusing on just power. Of course, with the BluCore, there will be paddles that are right at that level of power, that max power, but they won't be illegal power, which I think a lot of reviewers, a lot of consumers even still are like, okay, is this more powerful than my other paddle that I have? Well, if we're following the rules, then no, it shouldn't be more powerful.
So leading into kind of this other piece of tech that you guys not have released recently, but have gotten involved in, is you decided to release your own pickleball.
Yeah.
And for anybody, an outsider looking in, you're like, there is a bunch of people and companies now that have pickleballs. Why do our own? And you've also, it looks like you've also partnered with, is it the Fort actually?
Yeah, the Fort, yeah.
You partnered with the Fort on your pickleball. Can you tell us what about, obviously you're in the pickleball space, but why get involved in the actual pickleball itself industry?
Yeah. Not only are we, partnered with the Fort, Southern Pickleball, which is a great partner with us. They have hundreds of tournaments a year. We probably have 100 plus facilities where we're at least one of the official balls, tournaments, basically. And if people are a lot listening, anybody that's running a tournament, if you need balls, let us know. Like, we'd love to support your tournament. So we do a lot of sponsorship. We made a directive last Diacon. So 2024, we wanted to give away 250,000 pickleballs. We just did a free ball Friday today. I don't know when this will go live, but today we did a free ball Friday. So, you just go online and get some balls. That's it. And so for us, it's become, and we knew it was heading this way. We knew other people would get into the ball space. We knew it wasn't going to be a surefire way to win. It was just going to be, we needed to be in the game, but it's a loss leader. It's just like it is in tennis. And I think early on, some brands, because there was only a few manufacturers, you could make a decent amount of money selling pickleballs. Now you can't. And that's fine with us because it's a great first step into Diadem. If I give you a paddle, it may be right for you. I may have just bought one. I don't really need it. If I give you a shoe, man, it doesn't fit me. I'm sorry. I wish I could. But a ball, I can go, okay, let me go try this. And I get a little bit of taste of Diadem super quick. And the feedback is usually great. And it's usually very consistent. It's something like this. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's kind of like what I used before. And that's all we really want. Because if someone says, yes, that's the fastest ball I've ever used, then maybe somebody else says, wow, that ball's fast. I don't like it. And if someone says, oh, that ball's really soft, I can put the ball anywhere, then someone goes, well, I want a hard ball. So we positioned our ball to be as neutral in the middle, more geared towards a harder, faster ball, of course, not a really gooey ball, but it doesn't break, even though it's hard. It doesn't warp, even though it's not super soft, but it's softer than some of the hardest balls. So, I mean, we really positioned it where most people would give the reaction like they do with our tennis balls. Yeah, I like it. I would use that again. And that's what we want, because we don't want some big opinion one way skewed on the side for a ball where it needs to be a very even, neutral, durable, consistent ball.
The reason I asked this question is because when I tried to think about this myself, I asked the same question of like, is the actual thought to be the best pickleball in the market, or is the thought to say we want to give each of our customers that haven't yet tried one of our other products a taste of what Diadem is?
Yep.
And for me, from a marketing strategy standpoint, it's a genius idea. Genius. So how did you guys end up coming up with that idea of like, this is a way for us to just connect so many people to Diadem at a very, I'll say, relatively low cost in retrospect?
Right. Yeah. I mean, per ball, it's relatively low. The amount of balls we get out there is significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it formed like everything in our business. There, and to go to your brand, right? Fail first. We don't really see things as a failure. We see them as how can we pivot and make it an opportunity. So
Mm,
the reality is, when we first started the idea of a ball, there wasn't very many balls, and we were like, can we win the ball game? Can we have a ball that everybody wants, and we're one of the few manufacturers, and we take over? By the time everything had kind of come to pass, there's a lot of ball manufacturers and a crazy amount of options. And there's some that are using it even beyond a loss leader, like we kind of committed to last year, where they're just like, we'll pay you to use our ball. We'll do whatever it takes. And whether that works or that company goes out of business, we'll never know, because you forget who it was. But as we started to form this strategy, it really shifted. And that's where the name shifted from
hmm.
a partnership that we had before with Power and a Power Ball, which is kind of a fun name, to the official ball. And we were in talks with, now we're the official ball of Southern, we're the official ball of the Fort, we're the official ball of a lot of facilities. And that's why we wanted to continue to build the official name. But we were in talks to be the official ball of the PPA. And maybe our offer and our plan and our discussion is what as well as a few other brands, drove the price up to whatever they paid for it. But I remember going into meetings with them and with the team. It's like either we get the deal and it's great because we offered what we offered and we're happy with that, or we don't get the deal and it's great because somebody overpaid or somebody did more than we would ever consider offering. So there was no scenario where we lost. And it kind of then changed this idea of, you know what? We're not the official ball of the PPA. We're not the official ball of the APP or the MLP or the, and I actually had a joke of like listing all these letter acronyms where it's like, there's a million of them and we're not the official ball of any of those. What we are is we're the official ball of the weekend warrior, the person that wants to go out and play with their friends, the lady at the park who's 90 years old and is beating all the 15-year-olds. We're the official ball of, the never give up, never quit, never stop. Like we are the official pickleball. And, whether we're actually the official ball of the person or the facility using our ball at that time as they pull it out of the can, we are just using it as a way for people to try our product. And we want to be their official ball. We want to be the ball that they rely on and they believe in and they use and they purchase and they sell, etc. So that's kind of how it all formed and where we're at today, which is just we're selling a lot of balls, but we're also giving away a lot of balls. And that's great for us.
I was going to say, if people are interested in going like the balls and getting free balls, how can they go about?
Yeah, so it's called Free Ball Friday, and we kind of do it randomly. We don't do it on a set date because then people would just wait till that happens. But we always do it on a Friday. We partner with different people sometimes or have different kind of giveaways. Sometimes, everybody, I think today everybody's getting 2 free 3-packs, the first like certain amount of people, 250 or 500 people. And then sometimes we do, you're basically going to a raffle and the 500 people get 50 packs or whatever. So it's a little bit bigger. And, so I can't say when the next one's going to be, but I would say probably in the next couple months. We do a lot of advertising the day of on socials, on emails, and things like that. So it's kind of just like a last minute out of the blue thing where you have a chance on a Friday, or maybe it goes from Friday to Monday and we pick all the winners to get a free ball.
So you mentioned our narrative of fail first, and this is where I wanted to really go next, because you guys are consistently innovating at the edge of tech in both the tennis and pickleball space. Is there a failure that we'll kind of start with? We'll start with Diadem as a whole. Is there a failure over these past couple of years that at the time felt like maybe a disaster, but then a couple of great things actually came out of it that were unexpected?
Yeah, a super great question. Unfortunately, my answer is no,
Okay.
because I cannot remember a failure that shook us or changed us. There's so many. There's so many every single day. Whether we don't close the account, the order, our product is stuck in port, whatever it is. There's so many, and my wife hates when I say this, but I don't believe in stress. And she's like, you can't not believe in stress. Stress is stress and people get stressed. I just, and a lot of us here, we just, I think deal with it differently. We see every tough situation as an opportunity. It's just the fact, it's the way it is. And we just turn it into a positive or really just a story or a pitch or whatever it is. So for example, during COVID, you know, the manufacturing, the shipping, the importing, the sales, I mean, it was a disaster, right? We were a little bit lucky that we were growing so quickly up to that point. We had, brought on a money partner back then, and then that was his investment was, can we up our inventory? And we only had tennis back then, right? So it was really to bring on tennis balls because they're a true loss leader and they're incredibly expensive and you have to buy an incredible amount and commit to an incredible amount. So we were scaling our inventory. So when COVID hit, we had inventory because we had inventory for who we wanted to be, not who we were at that moment. And COVID hit, we had a few employees really at that time. and we're working from home, even though like, what is this? Well, do we really need to work home? We're working from home. And every other brand that we were competing against just took 6 weeks off, maybe more, just literally took time off because what are we going to do? And instead, we were still calling people. And because we knew as coaches, and I was still coaching then, you found a way to coach. That's your livelihood. You don't have a pension that you're relying on. You're not getting a salary. You coach. So we were calling coaches, and we knew, and they were finding a way to coach their clients still. And they needed balls, and they needed strings, and they needed rackets. And there's still, to this day, I mean, as much as recently as probably a month ago, I remember hearing somebody I talked to said, yeah, I remember you guys during COVID, you were the only place we could get product from, and we really like blew up in the tennis world as that basically brand that was able to help. Now, the failure or the difficulty was, there's COVID and balls aren't coming in and all of our stuff was stuck in port and all that stuff. And we just started to shift our mentality. We started pre-selling, we started, calling people instead of waiting for them to call us. We started doing different things to kind of counter this difficult situation. And that's one of literally thousands of situations where there is no, this sucks, or I can't believe this happened. It's okay. So how do we change this? How do we use that for our advantage instead of saying, all right, well, we failed, it's done.
Do you have any, in that same process, do you have any fear when you go to launch a new product that it may not hit or resonate with the audience as much as you've actually anticipated?
Yeah, sure. I would say so. I mean, I think we're pretty optimistic every time we launch a product that it's going to resonate because we put a lot of time and effort into it. But again, the thought is never like this paddle, ball, shoe, whatever is going to go so viral that we're going to change our business overnight. It's always like, okay, here's the process. We'll get it out. We get our first adopters right away. We start our marketing drip. We call our shops. We open up new shops because of this, open up new clubs, new distributors. It's always kind of a very conservative, I think, outlook on stuff. So I don't think we are afraid that our very conservative numbers won't be met. But in the end, I mean, we're in what we're doing now, not for a job to come to pay a bill, to go home. We're in this because we want to win. We literally want to win pickleball. And it's a daunting task. And it's not going to be done with just paddles or balls or shoes or facilities. Maybe not even all those combined. There might be more that's needed. But we want to be a leader in the sport. And so there's always a fear like that's not going to happen. But I've never really thought about it that way. I just, just like I can remember in a match, one of my better wins of my career in tennis, it was match point. I'm lefty, so I wanted to hit. I saw the opening, and I've been hitting it all match to hit a forehand winner down the line. And I mean, I think a lot of coaches would say, you're winning, keep building the point, don't take an unnecessary risk. What if you miss? And I believed in the forehand. I believe in my forehand. I believe in my forehand still today. And I said, I can hit it. And I pulled the trigger and I hit it. I hit a winner and I won. And I beat a guy that never would have expected me to beat him. And all of his coaches never would have expected it. And I mean, I think in general, we are that kind of underdog always. I got a chip on my shoulder for absolutely no reason. But, the whole organization does. And so, yeah, we're not really afraid to fail. We're not really afraid that our goals won't be met. We're just going to keep going until they are met. If you literally decide I'm not going to stop until I achieve it, like then you can't fail, and it doesn't matter how you get there. There's like a million different ways to do it.
Do you instill that same mentality in your kids that take risks and don't be afraid of failure ordeal?
I mean, I did with the kids I used to coach. With my kids now, they're a little too young.
I should say as they're growing up.
Yeah, I try. I tell my 1-year-old son like he's got to stop falling so much. But no, I'm not like a super overbearing. I'm not going to be a super overbearing parent. I know how like tennis parents and pickleball parents are. She and I'm because my daughter Capri, she's the older one, and she's starting to want to do things I do, or want to, she's got a thirst for knowledge for sure, but she's going to have to figure out these things. She's going to have to cry when she loses. I mean, I can't protect her, and I don't want to try to protect her, because then she's not going to learn those things. You have to learn through the failure, and we fail a lot in tennis and in pickleball, because you lose so many points, you lose so many games, so many matches, and you can still be the best player in the world. But I do want to instill the drive to have that drive for competition and the drive to get better. We have a mantra also within the organization, and it comes from Corbin, our rep in Texas, because he's relentless. He wants to be better than he was yesterday. Just be better. If you're just better than you were yesterday, you're on the path. And so I think with anybody, my daughter or anybody getting into a sport, or trying to start a business or whatever, you have to work very, very hard, but you have to keep working hard regardless of what happens, based on, did you succeed or fail in that particular task.
Moving to like the future of where Diadem is going, and even the sport of pickleball is going. Can you define what that looks like for us? Because you mentioned Diadem wants to be winning in pickleball. What does winning in pickleball actually look like?
Yeah, that's a good question too, man. I don't know what it is yet. I do know and believe very, very soundly that there will be 100 million active pickleball players in the world at some point. I think Asia, South America, Europe, all are growing tremendously in pickleball, and they will adopt it. I think if we become an Olympic sport, that'll just catapult it. I really hope that
Absolutely.
that could come to fruition. I think winning in pickleball, probably, it's the easiest way to say it, is probably just that even everybody knows your name. It's still very fragmented, where we did a study, and it was a while ago. So was it last year? Maybe even the year before. So I guess it's been a while, but they, I think there was like 200 or 300 people in the study. Very simple, all over the country. It was an ad agency that was presenting to us, so they did it with their, they paid decent amount for it. And they were pickleball players, people that had played. No, they weren't serious. Maybe they were pickleball players, and said, name the number one brand, or who do you think is the number one brand in pickleball? And I forget the wording exactly, but it was incredibly fragmented. There was like 37 answers with like 200-300 people, 37 answers, right? Like that'd be like, name the number one car in the world. There'd be like 6 answers, but the number one answer, I think it was 17%, was Nike. Nike was the number one pickleball brand. And that's
not even
just
in the sport.
Not even in the sport, but in sports. And so they just assumed, well, it's got to be Nike, right? So, I mean, that's how fragmented. I'm sure maybe that's changed a little bit, but in general, someone in California has different brands at their disposal than New York, than Chicago, than Japan and UK. And, until that is all cohesive and there are brand leaders, which we are, fighting every day to be one of, there's no winning. Now, once that's done and our name is synonymous with pickleball, whether you use it or not, I think we're very close to what we want to be. And if there's 100 million people playing and everybody knows your name, then I think that is winning to us.
I would say the coolest thing for any brand has to be you're walking down the street on a casual Sunday and someone's walking by you wearing Diadem stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I see people in airports carrying a Diadem bag. I see people send me photos, and, for me, it's like everything has been one step at a time, to where if you told us that, back when COVID happened and we were tiny and that was that, or even before that when it was in my garage, like, I would, I don't know, cry. I mean, I don't know, like, you kidding me? It's in Japan. I mean, we have a huge presence in Japan. Like the thought of that. And I played college tennis and had a roommate that was Japanese. I've always loved Japan. I went there after college. I played tennis there for about a month, lived with him. And to have our poster at Windsor Tennis Shop, the largest shop per volume in terms of sale in the world. And our poster is where Roger Federer used to be when I went there in like 2007. It was like, are you kidding me? But when I saw it, I was like, okay, cool. All right, so now let's work on this. Let's work on, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like it's almost like numb to, little things that maybe I should appreciate more, but it's just like, what's next? What's next for us, And so it's definitely a cool thing to see. There's people that are using Diadem, that appreciate Diadem, that respect Diadem, but I also want to know, how can I get more and how can I continue to make those people happy,
What was the date of origin for you guys when you started Diadem as a whole?
We launched in 2015. We formed the LLC in 2012. I was emailing random manufacturers of tennis string in middle of the night in 2011 and 2010, probably. I think the original idea came with, me and AJ Bartlett. He was a guy I met playing futures in Mexico. And then we went on to coaching. I was coaching a little bit earlier. He was a little bit better player. He's also younger. So he's trying to play pro still. And he's like, I mean, we can, actually it was more of like, he was like, I'm thinking about making a string because I'm buying string from some random guy who I call during business hours and the guy answers, hello. Like that's his business, And it's like he's like, I could do better. I know a lot of people that would buy string if I made a good string. And what I remember, and AJ might remember differently. What I remember is we had conversations, and my thought was, you're thinking of making a string cheaper than anything else and selling it to people cheap. I said, what if we made a string that was just better? And we didn't necessarily sell it cheaper. Maybe it wasn't the most expensive, but it was just the best string that we could make and had some characteristic. At that point, I didn't really have the idea, but then we started working on ideas. We had different ideas from different densities of string between the outside and the inside. And we ended up with a star-shaped string, a string so radically shaped that it got more spin than any other string. And that's what we launched with. And from 2011 to 2015, it was just learning how to make a string, finding factories. We went through 3 different ones, and building a plan, and building a story of what Diadem is and what it looks like and who it goes to and all that. And, it started pretty slow because we were doing it incredibly part-time. We were both coaching and playing and, and all we had was basically one product, but it worked. When we put all the money back in, and I think we started the business originally with like $40,000, and that was it. We bootstrapped all the way until we had an investor that put in not a lot of money and just that one amount never since, so it's been basically bootstrapped. We don't have, angel investors or private equity, and we're not spending an insane amount of money to get our logos up here and there. We're doing it through word of mouth, basic marketing, our sales team, and good products.
So we have 2 closing questions on this podcast. I don't know if you know them already, but I'm going to present them to you anyways. We'll start with the first one.
Okay.
So the first one is, what is one failure that you are thankful for today? It doesn't have to be Diadem related.
Yeah, that's easy.
Related too.
It's a personal related one, but it's easy. Yeah. Do you want me? Are we going one? Okay, sorry. So
we'll go one at a time.
Yeah, that makes sense. The easiest answer for me is I couldn't find a job during the financial crash. So I went to school at Embry-Riddle. I went for aerospace engineering, did 3.5 years of coursework, realized I didn't want to be an engineer. It's like an aeronautics specialty school. I played tennis there. So switched to business, graduated, played some pro tennis, realized, okay, now I need to get a job. And I applied where my friends were, US Airways, Lockheed Martin, places like this, had interviews. And I think I was just bad at interviewing, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. Maybe, I don't know. And I think not being able to, not having anyone feel that I was good enough to hire. And I know it was a tough time. Like nobody was hiring. So they were going through the processes because these were big companies. But my mom and dad had their own business together. They sold light bulbs. Didn't really want to take over that business, although I kind of did, kind of didn't. I wanted to do my own thing, got into coaching, and then I wanted to find a way to stay in tennis, and then of course pickleball later on, without coaching, because coaching is a grind. And so the whole idea of failing to have someone hire me and deciding I want to do stuff my own way, was, I would say, my greatest failure. I mean, you could also say every girl that I've ever dated that we ended up breaking up with so that I could find my wife was, and then my kids, was also probably a very, very good failure as well, because I would be miserable without her.
I have a question within there, which is, what about that experience like gave you that entrepreneurship mindset? Because I feel like this is such always like a key point for a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening is like, what made you really take that leap? Was it your parents owning their own business, or was it
Yeah.
something else?
Yeah, that was part of it. I mean, I always had it. I just didn't really think about it. When I came home from college, I started my own, like in between college years, right? Semesters. I started my own painting business because I painted something for my dad or something like that. And I'm like, you know what, I could do this. And I started going around to people's houses and, quoting them. And I underquoted them by like thousands of dollars because it was just me. And I probably didn't do that great of a job. And so I made my own money. I didn't get a summer job. I made like 10, 15,000 every summer doing my own thing. And then it kind of continued with coaching. I started my own coaching business, right? Because I started my own stringing business because I just wanted to make more money. I wanted to make money, and I wanted to do it in the way I wanted to do it. Now, yes, my mom and dad, working out of their house, out of our house, like seeing it and being a part of it and helping with it, definitely was a part of it. And I really want my kids to be involved with Diadem, or really to do their own thing, because I think, you know, taking that risk yourself is so valuable, and you're not working. And I don't like to say, like, oh, I don't work, I love doing it, because it's just kind of cliche, but like you know, eat, sleep, and think only about the business, and it's not work. I get in some usually between 5 and 6 a.m. I only want to be successful in Diadem and at home. And I think in time, I can get back into competing in sports again, because I do have a passion for that. And as my kids get older, I'll focus on them. But right now I have an opportunity here, and anybody would have an opportunity if they take the risk and follow what they love, to just go for it. And if you work harder than anybody else, you have a really good chance to succeed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Second closing question. What is your greatest fear moving forward?
Man, I don't know. Greatest fear. Uh,
Could be personal. Doesn't have to be with Diadem too.
I mean, uh, the only thing I can think of, and I maybe should have researched this in my head a little more ahead of time. Um, Only thing I could say that I can think about consistently that I don't want to happen, and that is either something happens to me, which is, it's terrible to think about,
Yeah.
or something happens to the world, or something happens to the market of pickleball, that I can't, and we can't at Diadem finish what we started, which is to win pickleball, right? And I think, the actual, and you ask what is the definition of winning, I think that'll change over time of what we consider winning. But if I and we don't get the opportunity to finish what we started, that would upset me, and scares me to think that, I don't know if we're a rush against time. I consider that we are. You have a finite amount of time, I feel like, to achieve the goal in any business, but some businesses take 100 years to achieve their goals, right? So I want to see and I want to achieve that goal, and I would say it'd be my biggest fear that I wouldn't be able to.
I have a bonus question for you after, on top of that, if you don't mind me asking it.
Sure.
When your kids are watching this all back, what would you want them to know is the why for why you did it all?
I mean, am I gonna go Breaking Bad and say I did it for my family, and then I don't know. I mean, um, I did it all, and like I said, always we at Diadem did it all, just because I love to compete.
Mm,
I didn't make it in pro tennis. I never really expected to. I gave it a little go because I had the opportunity to. Um, I just love to compete, and there's people that have said things about Diadem or about me since we started. Um, it's not gonna have. You're not. No chance. You can't do that. Oh, what do you? Did you make a little money this year? Type thing, you know. And it's just, again, my wife tells me I have a chip on my shoulder, and there's really no reason to. But the why is, and I would hope that Capri or Roman, my son, would have the same desire to want to prove themselves, not to anybody particularly, but just to themselves, you know, to
Yeah.
say, you know, I set a goal and I did it. I achieved it. And I nothing is going to stop me from achieving it, even if that goal changes over time, right? Like maybe my original goal was to be, you know, something in tennis, right? Like for Diadem. And now obviously the goal is probably more shifted towards pickleball, but racket sports in general, we want to be
Yeah.
a tennis brand as well. Um, you know, and, you know, I hope that, you know, they look at what we achieved, and I hope we can actually achieve something greater, so that that story of starting in a garage with an idea, with no knowledge of what the market is, because it's like we didn't form really a new market like some of these great entrepreneurs like Apple or Microsoft or, you know, Tesla. Even they basically kind of created it's their own thing. There was no competition. They created it. They pioneered it. We're going in and we're literally having to go after brands that are established and really like take them down and steal customers from them. To get a customer to say, I want to go with Diadem instead of X is a whole nother task that we have to do. But um, I did it. I did it because I wanted to compete, and I wanted to win at something. And I think this is something we can win in.
Is a small piece of the reason that you guys do your Diet and Present series is to just show that authenticity that you just gave us of like we're not just like a brand, but we're really trying to develop this community, this family, this interconnectedness, this human connection around it.
Yeah, the Diadem Presents is 100% about showing the connection between sport and everything else. That's the live to
Yeah.
play. Like you find your passion through sport. So many people do, and I think there's no better sport than pickleball to do that. I think it just like a side effect of that is definitely to show, yeah, our authenticity. We are not big business. We are not big funded corporation. We are definitely a startup. We're definitely grinders. We're definitely also not mom and pop anymore. We have, you know, 50 employees, and we have, you know, verticals from facilities to tennis to pickleball. But we are always going to be driven by the need to win, the need to compete, and then the need to really build relationships. We just want to build relationships. So we have our sales team call facilities. It doesn't matter if you want to buy from us today. We just want to get to know you. We want you to know us. We want to be a tool. We don't want to be, hey, put this order and put this order and put this order. And we want to be, hey, how can we help your business grow? And especially in pickleball, we want pickleball to grow. So anything we can do to help them help pickleball grow is going to help us and help pickleball long term.
Well, Evan, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. You shared so many genuine insights, not only obviously in your personal life, like we just talked about, but about what Diadem is doing as a whole to also really push innovation,
Yeah.
which the biggest thing for me though is the element that you guys are built off of this human connection and this interconnectedness. And that's something that we on the Fail First podcast resonate with heavily. Connecting people through this element of everybody fails, right? Everybody has to find a way to overcome failure and learn from it. So I appreciate that tremendously. What you guys are actually building over at Diadem. So thank you for being on today.
Yeah, thank you. You know, it's fun to do this. I don't usually go into that much you know, detail or just thoughts and stuff. But I truly do enjoy saying that. I usually do it in a one-on-one scene, you know. So
Yeah.
to have it out there is interesting. But you know, we're very passionate about everything that you kind of stand for as well, and with entrepreneurship and pickleball, of course, and mentalities of like desires and what drives people and stuff. So I really appreciated being on, and thank you for all the great questions as well.
I hope you had fun today.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna end
did.
the recording.